Ever have one of those moments? You're explaining something super important, like the one detail to stop everything from going sideways, and you just see nothing. That blank stare.
Oh, definitely. Or maybe you've been the one doing the staring, nodding along while mentally figuring out your grocery list.
Exactly. We've all done it. So today, we're diving deep into a skill that's honestly kind of a superpower. It's active listening.
Right. And it's way more than just, not talking while someone else is. It's about really understanding.
We've pulled together insights from experts on communication, emotional intelligence, relationship building, all that good stuff.
Yeah. To unpack the techniques, the benefits, why this actually matters so much,
hmm
think of this as your guide to becoming someone people feel genuinely heard by.
So if you're kind of tired of those misunderstandings, or you want deeper connections, or maybe just want people to feel valued when they talk to you.
Then yeah, you're in the right spot. We're going to break down some practical tools you can use, like right away.
Okay, so let's start there. Active listening. It sounds, well, simple. Just listen. But what's the active part all about?
That's a great question. Because it is more involved, basically active listening means bringing a real intention to the conversation. You're focusing completely on what the other person is trying to communicate.
Okay, so it's not like when I'm listening to, say, a debate, trying to poke holes in the argument.
Exactly. That's more like critical listening, which has its place, of course. But with active listening, the main goal isn't to judge or, plan your comeback.
hmm
It's really about understanding their viewpoint, acknowledging their feelings, and showing them you're engaged. It builds trust.
Acknowledging feelings. That's interesting. So it's not just about the facts.
Not at all. And when people feel you're actually getting them, they tend to open up more, be more honest.
Right. It makes sense. You feel safer, I guess.
Precisely. You get the surface stuff, sure, but also the feelings underneath, the context. It's deeper.
So how do we actually do it? I think I read something about the 3 A's. Is that a thing?
It is. It's a pretty useful way to remember the core parts. First A is attention.
Okay.
And that's not just being physically there, it's being mentally tuned in.
Up.
Noticing their words, yeah, but also their tone, their body language, fully present.
Gotcha. Like put the phone down. Attention.
Exactly that kind of attention.
Mm.
The second A is attitude. Approaching it with curiosity, being open-minded, trying to leave your judgments at the door for a bit.
Okay. That can be tricky sometimes.
It definitely can be. And the third A, adjustment. That's about being flexible. Adapting your responses, nodding, maybe asking a clarifying question. As you understand more of their story, you're kind of tuning yourself to them.
Attention, attitude adjustment. Okay. I like that. But that first one, attention. Wow. In today's world, that feels like the biggest hurdle sometimes. Seriously. My phone buzzes. My mind wanders. How do we actually manage to stay focused?
You're hitting on a huge challenge. Our environment often works against us, doesn't it? Stress is a big one. When you're stressed, your brain is already juggling a lot, making it super hard to truly focus on someone else. And multitasking while listening. It's mostly an illusion.
You mean I can't actually listen properly while scrolling through emails? Shocking.
Huh. Well, research backs that up. Divided attention really tanks your comprehension. Even tiny moments of distraction can mean you miss a surprising amount.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just slightly less effective, it's actually pretty bad.
Yeah, significantly bad sometimes.
So what do we do then, practically speaking?
Well, the first step is just noticing. Awareness. Recognize when you're stressed, when you're tempted to multitask.
Okay.
Then you actively try to remove those barriers. If it's a big conversation, maybe take a minute beforehand, just breathe, center yourself.
Right.
And definitely create that distraction-free zone. Phone on silent, maybe even out of sight. Close the extra browser tabs. Make a conscious choice. Okay, I'm here now.
It sounds basic, but it takes real effort to actually do it consistently. Okay, so we're present, we're trying to focus, but people communicate with more than just words, right? Absolutely. Those nonverbal cues, they say so much. What should we be looking out for?
You're totally right. Nonverbals often tell you more about the emotional side of things than the words themselves. Think about facial expressions. A real smile hits the eyes, right? A polite one, not so much.
Yeah, you can often tell.
Eye contact's another big one. Shows engagement, usually. Avoiding eye contact could mean discomfort, or maybe they're just thinking. Tone of voice, huge variations there.
Excitement, sadness, frustration.
Exactly. Posture, too. Confident or maybe defensive, slumped over. Even little hand gestures can add meaning or sometimes contradict the words.
It's like there's a whole second conversation happening.
Kind of, yeah. But here's a key thing. Don't jump to conclusions based on just one cue.
Okay.
Like someone crossing their arms might just be cold,
Hmm.
not necessarily closed off to what you're saying. Look for patterns,
Oh.
consistency.
Right. Does the face match the tone, match the words, match the posture kind of thing?
Exactly. Look at the whole cluster of signals. And remember, your own body language is sending messages too.
Oh, yeah, good point. I might be signaling I'm bored without even realizing it.
Totally possible. So things like making appropriate eye contact,
Hmm.
not staring them down, obviously, but showing you're connected, nodding a bit, having an open posture, relaxed. It all signals, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm interested.
Okay, so we're trying to be present, picking up on nonverbals. Now, what about when we talk? Asking questions is key, I get that, but are some questions better than others for this active listening thing?
Oh, definitely. The type of question you ask makes a massive difference. Think about those simple yes or no questions.
Like, did you finish the report?
Right. They have a purpose, sure. But for understanding someone deeply, they often just stop the conversation. You get a one-word answer, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, not much insight there.
Exactly. For active listening, you want to lean into open-ended questions. These are the ones that need more than just a yes or no.
Okay.
They signal that you're genuinely curious, that you value their perspective, and they really encourage the other person to share more fully, which naturally gives you a much richer understanding.
Can you give some examples? What does an open-ended question sound like in practice?
Sure. Things like, can you tell me a bit more about that? Or what was going through your mind when that happened?
Okay.
Or even, how did that situation make you feel? Or what are your thoughts on the next steps? Anything starting with what, how, why often works.
Tell me more. I like that one. Simple.
Yeah. The idea is to invite them to elaborate, to share their story in their own words. It really opens things up instead of shutting them down.
So they're sharing more thanks to our brilliant open-ended questions. How do we make sure we're actually, getting it right? Is this where that reflecting thing comes in?
Exactly. Reflecting back what you heard is absolutely fundamental. It's like holding up a mirror to their words and feelings.
Mm.
So after they've shared something, you try to summarize it in your own words. Paraphrase the main points, and definitely try to name the emotions you're picking up on.
So not just repeating like a parrot.
Haha, no, definitely not just parroting. It serves two really important functions. First, it checks your understanding. Did I actually hear what you intended to say?
Right, a reality check.
Precisely. And second, maybe even more importantly, it makes the other person feel genuinely heard, validated, seen. And that dramatically cuts down on misunderstandings.
So I might say something like, okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds like you're feeling real frustrated because you poured all this energy into the project and the outcome wasn't what you hoped for.
Perfect. That's a great example. You've got the content, the effort, and the outcome, and the feeling frustration. You could also use lead-ins, like, so in other words, you're saying, or it sounds like you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is key. You pause. You give them a chance to confirm. They might say, yes, exactly, or, well, mostly, but it's also disappointment. That clarification is gold.
Got it. Check. Then let them confirm or correct. Okay, this all sounds great for, regular conversations. But what happens when someone says something you just completely disagree with? Or maybe something that even pushes your buttons? That urge to jump in and correct them or argue, it's strong.
Oh, it really is. And that's probably one of the toughest parts of active listening. Withholding judgment, especially when you disagree.
Yeah.
But it's so crucial. If the other person senses judgment or feels like you're just waiting to attack their idea, they'll clam up. They'll get defensive. The safe space disappears.
So even if my brain is shouting, no, that's totally wrong, or that's not fair, I need to kind of park that reaction while I'm listening.
Exactly, at least during the listening part. Your primary goal then is just to understand their perspective, where they're coming from, even if you think it's flawed. There's a good example with one of the sources we looked at. Imagine Lisa is venting to her friend Jody about a big fight she had with her sister. Lisa's really upset, saying some harsh things maybe.
Yeah.
Jody could easily jump in with advice, or take sides, or tell Lisa she's overreacting. But instead, Jody just listens and says something like, wow, that sounds really complicated and upsetting.
So just acknowledging the difficulty, not judging the content.
Precisely. Jody's response validates Lisa's feeling of distress without agreeing or disagreeing with Lisa's take on the fight. It keeps the door open for Lisa to keep talking and figuring things out for herself. It's about understanding their experience, not necessarily agreeing with their conclusions.
We've really dug into the how-to. Let's pull back a bit. Why is this skill, active listening, so incredibly important? What are the big payoffs across different parts of our lives?
The benefits are huge, honestly. Let's start with personal relationships. It's absolutely foundational.
How so?
Well, it builds trust, like we said. It fosters real empathy. Think about spouses, family, friends. When you truly listen, they feel valued, understood. It deepens that emotional bond. It even helps you navigate disagreements better because you actually understand their point of view first.
Makes sense. You feel closer when you feel heard.
Exactly. And interestingly, some research even suggests that feeling truly listened to can trigger the release of oxytocin in the brain, the bonding hormone,
Wow, really? A physical reaction to good listening. That's cool.
isn't it? Now, think about work. Active listening is a massive asset there, too.
Okay. How does it play out professionally?
Better team communication, obviously.
Right.
Smoother collaboration. Fewer misunderstandings that derail projects. But it can even impact safety. Think about healthcare. A doctor or nurse actively listening to a patient can catch crucial details, potentially preventing serious errors.
I hadn't thought about the safety angle. That's powerful.
Definitely. And just generally, employers increasingly value social skills, and active listening is right at the heart of that. It's becoming a key skill in the job market.
Okay, relationships, work. What about just general social situations?
Yeah.
Meeting new people, parties, that kind of thing?
It's super helpful there, too. It helps you connect with new people more easily because you show genuine interest. It makes initiating and maintaining conversations less awkward.
Yeah, it takes the pressure off having to talk all the time.
Right. And it also equips you to offer real emotional support when someone's having a hard time. And for people who struggle with social anxiety, research shows that this kind of supportive listening interaction can actually have a positive effect on their brain activity, potentially reducing their distress.
So it's good for the listener and potentially calming for the speaker, especially if they're anxious. That's a win-win. It really sounds like active listening isn't just this isolated technique, is it? It seems deeply woven into how we understand people and ourselves.
You've got it exactly right. Active listening is a critical piece of the puzzle we call emotional intelligence, or EQ.
EQ, right. That term comes up a lot. What's the connection?
Well, EQ is broadly about understanding and managing your own emotions, but also recognizing and influencing the emotions of others. And those social skills, like active listening, like empathy, are fundamental to having high EQ. They're the tools you use to build relationships, navigate tricky social dynamics, and really get where other people are coming from and understand yourself better in the process.
And the good news is EQ isn't fixed, right? You can improve it.
Absolutely. Just like active listening, emotional intelligence is a skill set. You could develop it, strengthen it with practice and conscious effort.
And you mentioned empathy there. That feels like it's right at the core of this too, being able to, walk in someone else's shoes.
Totally. Empathy is that ability to understand and share the feelings of another person, to see things from their perspective.
And active listening helps us do that.
It's one of the primary ways we cultivate it. When you listen deeply, without judgment, you create that space for someone to be vulnerable, to share authentically. And that process allows you to better grasp their world, their feelings. It builds that bridge of understanding, that empathetic connection.
So listening builds empathy.
Definitely strengthens it. Our sources mention two main types of empathy, which is kind of interesting: affective and cognitive.
Affective and cognitive, what's the difference?
Okay, so affective empathy is when you actually feel what the other person is feeling. Like your friend is sad, and you start to feel a bit sad too, sharing their emotion.
Okay, I get that. Feeling with them.
Exactly. Cognitive empathy, on the other hand, is more about understanding their mental state, recognizing what they're likely feeling and why, based on their situation, without necessarily feeling the emotion yourself.
So, like, I can understand my colleague is probably stressed about a deadline, even if I'm feeling totally calm myself.
Precisely. You understand their perspective and emotional state intellectually, and both types are valuable. The sources also point out that low empathy can lead to things like being indifferent to others' struggles or dismissing their problems.
Right. Not great for relationships or teamwork.
Not at all. But again, the encouraging part is that empathy isn't fixed either. You can cultivate it. Things like being more mindful of your own feelings helps you recognize them in others, and consciously questioning your assumptions about people's experiences.
This has been so insightful. Okay, let's make it super practical. What are some concrete exercises or practices people can actually do to get better at this?
Great question. There are several things you can try. Since knowing yourself is key, one really good starting point is keeping a reflective journal.
A journal. How does that help listening?
Well, by writing down your thoughts and feelings about interactions, you start to notice your own patterns, your biases, your emotional triggers, things that might be getting in the way of you listening objectively. It builds self-awareness.
Ah, okay. See your own filters more clearly. Makes sense. What else?
Mindfulness exercises, even just a few minutes a day, focusing on your breath or just paying attention to the present moment without judging it.
Like meditation.
Yeah, simple forms of it. It trains your brain to focus, to be present. And that ability to stay present is exactly what you need in a conversation. It's like building your attention muscle.
Practice being present alone to be more present with others.
Cool.
Yeah.
Another powerful one. Consciously questioning your assumptions. Before you talk to someone or even during, ask yourself, what am I assuming about this person or situation? What if I'm wrong? What's another way to look at this? It keeps you open.
That takes effort, but I can see how it would stop you from jumping to conclusions.
It really does. And don't be afraid to seek feedback.
Ooh, tricky one. Ask people how good a listener I am.
Uh-huh. Yeah, maybe phrase it carefully.
Yeah.
But asking trusted friends or colleagues, how does my communication make you feel? Or do you generally feel heard when we talk? Can give you incredibly valuable specific insights. You just have to be open to hearing it.
Definitely need some courage, but yeah, probably worth it. Anything else?
Well, related to all this is using I statements. When you need to express something difficult, focus on your own feelings and experience. I feel frustrated when,
IOI.
rather than blaming, you always make me. Yeah. It's about clear self-expression, which often follows from better understanding both of yourself and the other person you've been listening to.
Right, connects back to self-awareness.
Exactly. And finally, if you want something really structured for practicing deeper connection through listening, you could even look into things like the 36 questions for increasing closeness. It's basically a guided exercise in asking progressively more personal questions and, crucially, listening deeply to the answers.
Wow. Okay, so active listening.
Hmm.
It really does feel like this learnable superpower, doesn't it? Something that can genuinely change how we connect, how we understand, how we move through the world with more empathy and intelligence.
It truly is. It's not just about talking less. It's about becoming more engaged, more understanding,
Hmm?
ultimately, yeah, a more connected human.
So, for everyone listening, maybe think about the next conversation you have. Just pick one thing. Maybe it's putting your phone completely away. Maybe it's trying one open-ended question.
Right? Or maybe just trying to really hear the feeling behind the words. What might you discover if you really truly listen? Not just to what's said, but maybe what's not being said.
It's a journey, like you said.
Definitely. And there are tons of resources out there if you want to explore more. We really encourage you to keep practicing, keep learning. This skill can genuinely transform your interactions.